Hi everyone, Nat Amoore here, author of Secrets of a Schoolyard Millionaire, The Power of Positive Pranking, and the soon-to-be released The Right Way to Rock. I am super excited to be involved in Write a Book in a Day this year. I really love the idea of having to run with something that you think of on the spot. And I'm not a big planner, just between you and me, don't tell anyone, don't tell my publisher. I think it's something that really appeals to me, this idea of a burst of creativity all in one day and working as a team. So I'm here today to try and give you a couple of tips on how to work with the parameters you're given. The reason for the parameters is obviously to make sure that you don't pre-plan your story too much and that you're actually writing a book on that day in a day. My first tip would be that to really follow that rule and run with it. So, tip 1. So my first tip is let the parameters drive your story and your characters. If you have something preconceived in your mind and then you get something that doesn't fit there and you just try to squish it in to make it work, it's just not going to be true to the story. So when you get, say, like if we use a character from last year's, we got a waiter, okay? Now a waiter actually needs to have a job at a restaurant. You can't just say, oh, my character's a waiter, and then they never go into the restaurant and never serve a single table. But if you want to get creative, a waiter, for example, can be a side job. So for instance, a lot of times in Australia, a waiter might be an actor or an artist that's pursuing another career and is doing waiting to pay the bills. So that's okay, but they actually need to go to the restaurant. You can't just kind of say, oh yeah, my character's a waiter, but they're going to go and do this completely other thing that has nothing to do with waiting, because you've already had it set in your mind. So keep the parameters in your mind. Don't try to squish them into a story or a thing that you've already set up in your mind. Be open-minded, grab the parameters and run with them. Think outside the box. Now, when you're given a parameter, there's some place that you'll always go first. For example, one of the objects that they got was a shopping trolley last year. So, of course, the first thing that jumps to mind is a Coles shopping trolley. Obviously, big metal, goes down the aisles of a shopping center or a supermarket. But if you start thinking outside the box, there could be little baby shopping trolleys that are toys or, might be part of sort of a doll's house, little tiny miniature ones. Okay, well, that's great. Then what kind of people use those shopping trolleys? Are they little tiny miniature people? Or do our main characters get shrunk down so small that the only objects that they can use are all the objects from a dollhouse? There's other ways of thinking about it. Or, maybe a shopping trolley, maybe instead of using it to do the shopping, which is a very kind of typical way of thinking about it, maybe we're using it as a vehicle to speed down the road, Is there like 5 kids or 5 circus clowns crammed into a shopping trolley and they're zooming down the street and they're being chased by, 5 evil clowns who are like jammed into a car and chasing them down the street? So when you get your object, have a little brainstorm around the object of what it could be that isn't just the most obvious choice. And that doesn't just go for your object, that also goes for, all the parameters that you're given. You can always think outside the expected, and that might really spark some great ideas for your story. Number 3 might seem like a little bit of a weird one for you, but my third tip is train like an athlete. Now, I know you're thinking, wait, what? We're writing a story. What are you talking about? Well, writing is like anything else you do in life. The more you practice, the better you get at it. You think that Kathy Freeman just went to the Olympics after spending a week eating Maccas and lying on the couch? No, she trained and trained and trained and trained and trained, and that's why she's so good. So with writing, it's exactly the same thing. And with Write a Book in a Day and working with your parameters, you can do exactly the same thing too. So get together as your group and practice giving yourself parameters to work with. Now, there's a game that I play with kids in schools when I do school visits quite a lot. That's kind of like a storytelling pass the parcel. So I have all these little colorful boxes like this, and inside Okay, this one sounds like it's empty. Maybe I forgot to put something in, but there you go. Inside there's an object. And what I do is I get the kids to sit in a circle and they pass the box around, and when the music stops, the person that's holding the box has to open it up, see what's inside. Oh, it does have something inside. And start telling a story about it. So they might pull out this one and they go, okay, well, what's a dinosaur? So once upon a time, back in the Jurassic years, there was a dinosaur called Frank, and he was roaming the lands of the Jurassic time looking for a new best friend because Frank was lonely because everybody was scared of him. So they tell that part of the story. Then I pass the next box and they pass it around. And when the music stops, they have to open the box, take it out the object, but continue the same story. So the next kid might be like, not only was Frank lonely, but he also wanted to be a detective. So when he was trying to find a friend to play with, he took out his magnifying glass and searched all around, hoping to find, because he was so big, maybe the smallest friend in the Jurassic era. And so on and so forth. And I have like 6 boxes, and all the kids just have to keep adding and adding to the story using the object that they're given. So you can do the same thing. Give yourself some parameters that you just make up. But what it'll do is it'll start kind of flexing the muscle of creating around parameters. So give yourself the 2 primary characters, the non-human character, the setting, and the issue, and just sit in your group that you're going to write with and have a practice. You don't have to necessarily write it down, but it kind of will get your creative juices flowing in the sense of using parameters to write with. So you can, draw it out of a hat, pass it around, I don't know, do whatever you want. It's completely up to you, but I think it's a really good way of training for the Write Your Story in a Day Olympics. Oh, and you know what? Because you've been really good, I'm going to give you a tip 4. Once you've got the parameters, never let them out of your sight. Write them up on a whiteboard, stick them up on the walls, stick them to your friend's forehead, whatever it is, to remember as you're writing and creating and planning to always have them in your mind so that they don't get lost and they don't become something that you just kind of have to throw in at the end, because the parameters are looked at when they're judging the stories. So really always have them visually in front of you. Visually really helps. Permanent texter, write it on your friend's forehead. Don't do that. That's bad. But do have them there so you're always looking at them and always thinking about them when you're planning your story. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope it was super helpful. I'm so excited to read your stories. I'm really, really pumped for this. So good luck. Train those writing muscles and those creativity muscles, and best of luck with your stories. Bye.